shall I go? What shall I do?
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
Behave yourselves!
Hello, YouTubers out there. This is Jerry Saravia at the movies. So today we're taking a look at the film Saltburn, and this one it's a good movie. It's definitely a good film, but it is tempting to call this film, which is off-kilter, very blackly humorous, sexually frank, and deeply unsettling, a great movie. It's not a great movie, but it certainly has the makings of one. So I think it's a good film, but let's discuss it. So Saltburn is sort of a fish out of water semi-comedy of manners. At least it seems to start off that way, when we're introduced to a new Oxford student. So this is presumably set in our time, in 2022 or 23. Oliver Quick is his name, played by Barry Cogan, who's exceptional in every way in this performance. He should have been nominated. He's really that good. He was also in The Banshees of Inisherin, if you haven't seen it, which is a great film. That's a great film. Anyway, so as a student, he's mocked for his student jacket as he begins his semester at the most prestigious of the United Kingdom's universities, Oxford. He has a hard time fitting in, of course. And he does, though, he talks as if he's narrating pretty much the piece, the film, rather. He talks deeply about a popular student named Felix, played by Jacob Elordi, who apparently played Elvis Presley in the film Priscilla, which makes me curious to see Priscilla now. Anyway, he's very smitten with him. And so you think at first that perhaps Oliver Quick is gay. The student Felix, extremely popular at Oxford, and they somehow, through apparent sheer intervention, become friends as they drink merrily and spend time together and this and that and the other. And as you can imagine, they're party animals. Pretty much Felix is a party animal. Oliver's father dies at one point, and Felix tries to comfort him, little knowing the more troubling truths about this fish out of water who came from Prescott, which is a small town close to Liverpool, so it's more working class. Felix lives in Saltburn when he's not at Oxford, which is a glorious mansion filled with many expansive rooms, one after another. It may as well be a hotel. It's really that big. So Oliver's invited to stay with Felix at this stately gated manor, but basically a mansion. And so Oliver's quite taken by the size and scope of Saltburn, and Felix lives with his parents, the loopy Sir James, played by a wonderful actor, Richard E. Grant, who's been in many films for many years that I've seen, and the freewheeling candor of Lady Elspeth, played by Rosamund Pike, who is sort of like, the best way to put her is like a still life with a pulse. And very blunt. She says exactly what she thinks about everyone to everyone. Anyway, so then there's Felix's sister, Venetia, played by an invigorating Alison Oliver. She's a nymphomaniac whom Oliver actually seduces. And between the lavish parties and gratuitous karaoke, Oliver's not dismayed by the way the rich live. He's intoxicated by it, and by Felix and his family, so much so that when it is time for him to exit the premises, he refuses. And other people stay at this Saltburn, but gradually they give hints like, you have to go, you have to go. In particular, Carey Mulligan, who also appears in this film, who's actually unrecognizable at first. She's also a great actress. Saltburn is a compelling story, but I feel that often it feels like a demented freak show, daring us to look at the screen when we rather not. Now, that's not a bad thing. There are many films that I've liked that have done that sort of thing. And like I said, this is a good film. And I'm no prude to sexually deviant behavior displayed on screen. Actually, at this point, it's hard to believe. I don't know how many of you have seen Crimes of Passion with Kathleen Turner back in 1984, which was considered quite sexually deviant, which probably by today's standards feels not nearly as sexually frank as it once seemed. Uh, but then there are other films, like by Peter Greenaway, that stand above this film in terms of frank sexuality. The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover, for one, which is a totally different kind of film, but it deals with working class and the rich, too. So it's kind of interesting, that dichotomy, and that's sort of explored here. However, there's one point where Oliver licks a bathtub that he shares. He shares the bathroom with Felix. He's in the adjoining room. After Felix has masturbated. Not exactly my cup of tea. I'm not saying you can't show that on film. I would never say that. But that seemed a little off-putting to me at first. But that's just me. Same with Oliver's seduction of Venetia, which is colored by, and I'm going to put this as well as I can without seemingly getting into trouble, but you'll get the idea, which is seemingly colored by crimson lewdness, and I will leave it at that. Okay, it might give you a good idea. If you do ask me in the comments what that means, I'll explain it, but I just as soon not, so use your imagination. Now, these sexually frank moments are just that. They are frank, but they're hardly colored by any true eroticism. And the goal here is to shock, and writer-director Emerald Fennell does just that. I believe her first film was Promising Young Woman, if I'm not mistaken, with Carey Mulligan. So you want to look away, but you can't help but look. That is some kind of special gift this Anything Goes director is willing to pursue, which is a good thing. I'm glad that there are some directors who are willing to go far and beyond what's normally expected in a movie. But none of this seemed really erotic to me. It just seemed designed to shock. Now, despite all the open sexuality and the sublime performances that teeter on the edge of theatricality, I was less than shocked, though, by Saltburn overall. The characters are keenly drawn personalities, and they stick with you, yet precious little humanities divulged. And Oliver's a little loony himself, as he tries to have sex with everyone, male or female, yet we are never sure of his motives. At least, not till the end. And he is a liar and a potential sociopath, yet I never gleaned much more than that from him. As good as he is, and a strong personality, and these are strong personalities in this film, every one of them, I didn't get much, I felt indifferent to them. And because it teeters on the edge of theatricality, as I said, the characters seem to shrink in any caring towards them. However, Felix seems like the most normal of the bunch. He's a party animal, but he can have his feelings hurt. That was the character that I wish had been given more screen time, a little more interest and access to who he is. But there are twists in this movie that, without giving anything away, but if you know the talented Mr. Ripley, or if you've seen any films that deal with Ripley, one that I've seen not long ago, The American Friend from 1977 by Wim Wenders, which is a very great film, or at least a very good one. I don't know if that's a great film, but anyway, it's a better film than this. But anyway, it's sort of in that vein, the twists, and I'll leave it at that. While watching Saltburn, it was superficially obvious to me that Fennell wants to present the rich as boring, bland, uptight people. But that's such a dull cliche at this point. There's so many films that have dealt with that cliche, and you got to bring something new to it. The rich are not all boring, bland, and uptight people. Maybe some, but I mean, they're not all that way. Once you get to know them, I'm sure. Maybe some are for sure, but what I'm saying is they can't all be the same just because they have money. And even though this is meant to be sort of satirical at times, it also tries to shock, but then we're not sure who we should be gravitating towards in this movie. Now, I've seen films before, obviously, where there are characters that you feel an emotional distance from. Sometimes there's a purpose behind that, which is to sort of observe them. But you want to be able to have the tonal shifts in character and the personality, and you want to gauge that through nuance. And unfortunately, this film, other than Felix, there's not a whole lot of nuance. So as good as the actor Kogan is at playing Oliver, there's not a whole lot of nuance to his character or what he's up to. So it was hard for me to care about anybody. You know, it's interesting that only last couple of months ago I saw The Killer by David Fincher, and I felt the same way. It was just sort of, you watch the film, you admire it more than you really like it. Not to say I dislike this picture. It's probably one I wouldn't mind seeing again in the future, but I didn't feel really connected to it. I felt more connected to the lush visuals and the look of Saltburn and all this, but by the end, I just felt completely indifferent to the movie. So, the movie draws you in rather creepily, yet distances you at the same time, which is fine. You know, Stanley Kubrick could often do such a thing like that. But you want to rub salt on the wounds you feel while watching this knuckle sandwich of a movie, instead of rubbing the salt on the wounds of the characters. And that's the difference to me. I just felt a complete disconnect to the characters. So they are not interesting enough, but they are, at the same time, the film's look and the way it hooks you in is fascinating. So it's difficult to ignore the picture. So it's sort of a struggle between what could have been a great film versus what's a good film that should have gone further. And by avoiding the humanity of the characters, with the exception of the character Felix, you're sort of going back and forth. Now, the twist at the end didn't really feel warranted to me, because I just felt if that's what it really came down to, without giving anything away, then it was just yet another example of trying to shock more than anything else. And I feel that sometimes even with shock, there has to be awe. And there was nothing to be awed by in this movie. It was just shocking. So, good film, worth watching. It is quite intense at times. But overall, that's more the tone and the flavor of the picture. And we're just too much of an indifference more than anything else towards these characters. So those are my thoughts about Saltburn. Tell me yours. Have you seen this film? It hasn't been up for any Academy Award nominations. So, as I said, Barry Keoghan probably deserved a nomination, despite the fact that there's not a whole lot of nuance to the character. But that's not his fault. He is still mesmerizing. The characters are all mesmerizing in a way, even though you feel disconnected by them. So it's a strange film experience, but worth checking out if you like these kinds of films anyway. And you can't predict what's going to happen from one second to the other. So that's usually a big plus. So, all right, I look forward to what this director does next, for sure. That's the best way to put it. I don't know. I don't have a mixed reaction exactly. I just think that somebody got carried away with the shock and not enough with the awe. I don't know if that makes sense, but anyway. Tell me your thoughts. Have you seen Saltburn? And what do you think? Hit the notification bell if you're already a subscriber. Thank you to new subscribers that have joined in. Hope you enjoy what you're seeing. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do. And I guess that's all I got to say about Saltburn. Tell me what you think. I'd really like to hear what people have to say. Do check it out. It's on Amazon Prime for free. So check it out if you can't see it in the theater. That's all I got to say about that. And this is Jerry Saravia at the Movies, signing off.